Welcome back to Most Writers and Fans. My name is Terry Bartley, and I am joined by Ryan Gebhart. We're doing another top two video today. So today we're going to be talking about our top two musicals. I thought that with Wicked coming out and people let's super be really into Wicked, and for the record, love Wicked. I didn't put it on my list because it's too early. I feel like it's too early to say this is like one of the best musicals ever. Like I need to see it more. You know what I mean? It needs to be part of the cultural consciousness for me. But I thought it might be a fun opportunity for us to sort of chat about musicals and things that, are just sort of fun to watch. So just so you guys know how this works, we'll just sort of back and forth say one of our two musicals, and then at the end, we'll just sort of wrap it up. And that's sort of the whole show. Ryan, what is one of your musicals?
Let's see. Probably Hamilton. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I thought about Hamilton because it is such an iconic musical. Lin-Manuel Miranda has sort of like become a big part of just sort of like the musical consciousness since then, from like Encanto and Moana, and it is sort of like his magnum opus. Like he's going to always be known for that, right? And that's sort
Yeah.
of a cool thing that somebody has that in the world. What do you love about it?
I don't know. I mean, the thing that really jumped out at me, was probably one of the first ones I saw as an adult. So that was just like having that in like a memorable moment. So, but I guess like one of the things that I really enjoy about it is just having that political spin in like and bringing it into the entertainment world and not just having it as the two camps completely separated. So it's nice having like history and then making it fun.
Yeah, and I think that we as writers can sort of appreciate that because like whenever people write like historical fiction, that's sort of the whole point of that, right? Is to sort of like make it a story and not just tell people history, but to say like, hey, here's what it was like living in this time. And Hamilton does that, but then it also has like this weird, interesting modern twist where it uses more modern language. The songs are interesting, where they're and since then it's become like this is the Lin-Manuel Miranda staple, but it's like a
Yeah,
bit more rappy than your typical musical, which is kind of like fun because it sort of like shifted what we think of as musicals, which is very cool. It was like pushing the genre. But yeah, I also really love the idea that like it's giving us history, but in a way that's like easy to consume, because sometimes people don't want to learn history. And also, like they always say, like in US, like our history is sort of important. Like it's important for us to know like how this country was founded and why. Because it seems like we often, forget those things
right,
when it comes around to our elections.
right.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and toss in one of mine. So I thought about this in two different ways because I'm a huge musical guy. Like I could have listed probably like 20 easy. So I tried to pick this in a way that wasn't just like these are the top all time, because I think of this show as more of like what are our personal favorites, right? So I decided to pick one that is sort of like your traditional, like anybody would agree that it's a good musical, like it's like one of the best. And then I picked one that's like personal for me. So I'm going to
Okay.
go with my personal one first, like the one that is like special to me for like I grew up watching it. It's one of my favorites. It's sort of influenced a lot of things in my life, which for me is Newsies, Kenny Ortega's musical about newsboys that came out whenever I was in like middle school ish. It's been like really influential for me because the songs, I feel like musical songs, I love them to tie into plot. I think that they need to tie into plot because otherwise, like, what are they? But also, like, I love it whenever they have meanings beyond that plot and you can kind of like take those messages with you into life. It's like the song Seize the Day. Like, I say that a lot because, like, I think that it's important to like remember that there's things to like you can take on things you never thought you could. And that's sort of what Newsies does for me. Is it kind of like inspires me to like do those things. Have you seen Newsies? What do you?
No, I've never seen it, but I've heard about it, and it's like, oh, it'd be great to see it.
It was the first show I saw on Broadway. Also,
Okay,
I saw it.
fine.
Yeah, yeah. So whenever I went to New York for the first time, I did a rush seating, and I got tickets for Newsies. So it is the first show I saw on Broadway.
Nice.
So it will always be special to me for that reason. But also, like, it's just been, I like the political connotations too, because it's about like forming a union and like taking on corporations. And I feel like that's, really influenced a lot of my politics. Like I feel like labor is so important and respecting workers is so important, and not just like, and sort of like trying to figure out how corporations can compensate people appropriately and not take advantage of their workers, all those things. And I feel like
Yeah.
Newsies really like taps into that in a way that, like, again, it kind of like puts a face on the history, because
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
think that the history
definitely.
of unions feel kind of like amalgamous, and these days I think unions in a lot of cases have sort of like lost fashion, where like a lot of companies don't have them anymore. But I think that you sort of forget like how little power you have as an individual going up against a corporation unless you do work together, like
Right.
like it does take banding together to be able to negotiate like better rights and better like things, like just better ways for you to thrive in this world, because like companies love taking advantage of us, right? Like you hear about like Amazon factories all the time, like workers having to use the bathroom in bottles, and
Yeah.
like having to work like insane hours and running across warehouses to meet deadlines, like, and that's why like some of them have been trying to unionize, because they might actually be able to like impact those conditions and work in a more fair environment if there was a union. So I do think that Newsies is cool for that reason, because it puts a bit of a face on it. And like I think there's enough distance from the time period that it's taking place that it can feel a bit like that was so long ago. But it's
Right.
sort of like one of those things that's almost sad that it's still so relevant,
Yeah.
like it's something that is still so relevant and timely, even though it was something that happened so long ago. So I think that it's cool to be able to be a modern person watching these newsboys dance around, but also be like, actually, I kind of get what they're going through because I see it, in my world.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So what is your next one?
Let's see. So I am torn because I like the rest of the country right now. I cannot get Wicked out of my head. So
Yeah. No, you can say
so
Wicked.
yeah.
I
So
I
I
wasn't gonna say Wicked. We were gonna talk about it one way or the other, so you may as well.
right.
So it's fine if you want to say
Yeah.
it.
No, I can't think of anything else right now. Like there's so many other ones, but it's just right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm obsessed with Wicked, especially right now. I just love how fantastical they made it. You know, I've been going back and forth listening to like the the original screen
Broadway cast.
Broadway yeah, and the actual movie um music, and it's just like I keep going back and forth. But one of the reasons I love it, it's so magical. So it just like pulls you in and just gets you, I don't know, optimistic, I guess. Even
Yeah.
though it's
No,
like,
I really loved Wicked too. So I've been a fan of the musical for a long time. I think many of us have, and I've always just sort of, I never have watched the show, but I've heard the songs forever. Uh,
right,
I think the last episode that will air before this comes out, I have a rant in the beginning of the episode for my intro where I talk about how I just got out of my therapist's office because he's talking to me about how I need to like give myself more credit. Like I'm doing a lot of work already, and even though I feel bad that I'm
yeah,
not writing as much as I'd like to, like I should
right,
still like appreciate what I'm doing. But then Defying Gravity came on my radio right after that, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. And as an independent creative, like I'm trying to defy gravity, like do the impossible. And
yeah,
it was just a very cool reminder that like what we're doing is very hard. And it is like I'm sure you feel this way too, as somebody who is also fully self-published. Like it's hard to do it, and it's hard to work a
it
full-time
is,
job and do it, and it's hard to like
yeah,
find time in your schedule. And like I think for many people it would feel impossible, like truly. So like I think that we are in a lot of ways like defying gravity, doing the impossible. And it was just sort of this cool realization for me to have that like, you know, obviously in the world of Wicked, like she does quite literally defy gravity, like she's flying, it's a magical world. But I think that what she is saying in that moment, because she didn't know that she was for sure gonna fly, like she was still
right,
all new to all this. So like she was saying like we need to stand up against people we can't, you know, like you're never gonna bring me down. Like people can't tell me that I can't do this. And I thought it was such a cool like parallel to like what we as independent creatives do, because I think it is such a resonant message for us, because how often do we feel like I can't do this, like this is impossible? And it's like, yeah, it is impossible. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try.
right,
Yeah, so I loved, like I felt like the movie itself was such a good representation of it, because like towards the end of it, I was like, this is a Marvel movie. Like, this is like a Marvel action movie that is a musical, and that is very cool. Like, I've
yeah,
never
yeah,
seen this before. So it's very cool that it's like, it has action, it has like all this stuff, but also like the songs are catchy. It's a bit of a comedy. Like I think what's so cool about it is that it's a movie that we wouldn't usually see in theaters now, which is to
Mm,
say like a bit of a like romantic comedy aspect, a bit of um like things that usually go straight to streaming, you know.
mhm.
But because it was a Broadway musical and because it had a following already, it was able to make its way into theaters. And I think that that's why it's been so successful, not just because it was already a successful musical, but because I think that we as a public is sort of like craving being able to go out to the theater and not just watch like superhero movies. I love superhero movies,
Right.
but it'd be great to watch other stuff, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So my last one is again, this is sort of like my I think anybody would say this is a good musical, so like it's a fair choice. And I don't know if I would say this is like the best musical in the world. I'd have to like take time to think about it. But I think that for my second pick, I chose a Hairspray,
Oh,
the John Waters musical
yes.
about, you know, this girl Tracy Turnblad who is overweight and joins this dancing show, and also there's a lot of like race elements. I just think it's such a good musical. The songs are so catchy. And also I just love I think this story is so interesting and like also sadly resonant still in the world that we
Yeah.
live in.
Yes.
What have you seen Hairspray? I'm sure you have.
I have, yeah.
What do you think of it?
Yeah, oh, I loved it. That was honestly one of the top choices for me. Um, yeah, no, it has such a resounding message. Yeah, like we are saying, it's still very relatable. And I also growing up in Delaware, Baltimore being so close, it's like, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and for me too, I think as a writer, it has stuck with me because the thing that the movie does that I think is so interesting that I feel like I don't 100% agree with this in life, but I think that there's some truth to it, which is that like Tracy was a little different, right? Like she grew up a little
Mm,
bit different than everyone else. So she was a little overweight or overweight enough that it was noticeable, right? Like that was the point of the movie. And I think that because she saw the life through this lens of being different, she was able to have empathy for like the black community in her town. And I feel like I've done that in my writing a lot. Like I have a character who's experiencing poverty, and it's like hard for her, and it allows her to then also see why that's bad for like people who are experiencing like racism or like other things.
mm,
Because like I think that if you've had a hard life, if you have struggled, you're able to understand to some extent what someone else is going through. Like I think that us as queer people, like I would never say that I understand like that I fully understand the life of like a black person, but I have some
right.
sense of what they go through, right? Like I've experienced various kinds of oppression, and I think that it's such an interesting angle to take, and I'm sure John Waters probably felt that as, you know, a gay man writing about, you know, the black community, probably also sort of felt that is like as
Mm,
a queer person, like he even though he's not walking their shoes, he can kind of like see the parallels.
right, right.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Ryan. This was a lot of fun. Anything you'd
Yeah,
like to add? Where you have a new book coming out soon-ish, right? You're like in the
soonish.
trenches.
Yes, in the trenches. Just gave the first sketches to the cover artist, so that's exciting. Yeah, deep in edits.
So where should people go to check out your earlier works? This is the final book in your series,
Yes,
right?
yes, this is the final book in the series. So 7-part series, and it's finally finishing. So very exciting.
And you got time to
But
read all
yeah,
6 books before it comes out. So get
yes,
on that,
yes,
everybody
yes,
watching this.
yes. Yeah, find me at most of my social media handles. They're RY Gebhart, and my website is just my name, ryandgebhart.com. And the series is called The Jewel of Life.
Yeah. So definitely check that out. I have the first book for the record. I bought the first book. I've not read it yet. But it's on my list. So I will get to it very soon. I'm
Yeah,
excited to dig
TBRs.
into it. All right. Well, thanks so much, Ryan. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for
Yeah, of
listening to
course.
Most Writers Are Fans. We'll be back next time, and we may have another short thing like this the week after that. Thanks so much. Bye.